Chancellor, Chairman of Task Force 21. I have the privilege of introducing Colonel Ty Moore. Colonel Moore is the Deputy Director of Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Modernization Site Activation Task Force at headquarters for the Air Force Global Strike Command in Barksdale, Louisiana. In his position, he assists the Director of ICBM Modernization in overseeing and coordinating the activities of the Air Force in support of the deployment of the Sentinel ICBM weapon system and the retirement of the Minuteman III ICBM system. I would tell you that if you talk to Ty for a couple of minutes, you will immediately understand that he is passionate about this mission, passionate about deterrence for our nation. And so please welcome Colonel Ty Moore.
Buddy. We'll see you later.
Good afternoon. I really like that theme music. Maybe I should put in a request for that and anytime I get a chance to come up. I'm sure the answer is going to be no, but I can see the request. Well, thank you all for attending today's symposium. Very important topic that we're going to cover, that we've been covering. And unlike most of the speakers, I don't have a list of readings for you. I think I'm here to just have a conversation on what the Sentinel program is. I mean, there's a lot of questions, and it's probably important for everyone in this community in particular to understand when you hear Sentinel, what does that mean? Not only for our nation and our allies, but what does that mean for the people here at Minot? So I'm going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, and that hopefully you walk away with some positive things, and I bring you good news that hey, we have a plan to endure what's happening here at Minot from a strategic deterrent perspective. However, the magnitude and scope of the program brings with it, some obvious challenges that we just have to work through as part of the process. Is that fair? Okay, so while I get my notes kind of set up, I want to talk about, so I went to a car show recently at the base where I'm signed to down in Barksdale. And at the car show, I can't help but think about my job while I'm doing everyday things. So I'm looking at a 1960 Corvette, immaculate condition. It's a beautiful car. I'm a car guy, so I love it. So I'm talking to the owner, and he tells me about how awesome this car is, and I'm eating it up. And then a couple rows down, there's a 2024 Corvette, and I'm talking to the owner about his car. Man, Drew. Went home, told my wife, hey, let me tell you about Minuteman III versus Sentinel. She gets it. So I'm going to try to do that today to explain, at least from a car guy's perspective, as much as I love Minuteman III, and it continues to perform extremely well, safe, secure, effective, correct, today, ready right now. Okay. However, there's a pacing threat that we're going to talk about. Okay, so this is as close as you're going to get to the picture of the Sentinel right now because it's still being assembled and it's basically a design. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about is really in a design phase. However, I think it's important that you at least be brought up to speed where we are today. The obligatory, here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'll wrap up at the end and kind of remind you of what I told you. Okay, so how can you talk about Sentinel without, first think about what's the need for a weapon system of this type? And all morning we've been hearing about the threat. Near peer, rising powers, very dynamic international environment, I would say. And if you read a lot of U.S. policies and doctrine about the strategic environment, you hear a lot of great power competition, keeping pace with the current threat and the future threat. So I think there aren't many challenges to this because our nuclear deterrent really underpins our our national security strategy. And without what the men and women that are doing this mission are doing today, okay, the operations that the military conducts on behalf of this nation would not happen in as safe of an environment as it possibly could. So those men and women that are doing the 24/7 mission, 365 days a year, they're supporting that need. Back in 2014, we went through what we call the analysis of alternative for the ground-based strategic deterrent. So that's where the idea of a Sentinel program really came out of, because through our Joint Requirements Oversight Council, okay, they looked at what Minuteman III provides today and what the threat is for the future. And I'll talk more about that when I talk about the non-McCurdy process. Just going to get it out there. We're going to talk about it. I will share with you what I can. However, with a caveat that there are things that are still ongoing that I can't discuss. But I'll feel whatever questions you might have about that. All right, back to 2014. So back in 2014, we go through what we call here's another acronym for you, JROC, the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. And from there, okay, they determined that placing the Minuteman III, with a program like Sentinel was the most cost-effective option. So that's where Sentinel, ground-based strategic deterrent, GBSD at the time, that's where that came from. So when I show you what the need is, okay, people that are looking at protecting this country, protecting our allies, providing, that strategic umbrella, if you will, are seeing and saying the same things, that we need a program like Sentinel. The pacing threat. And I paused there for a second because I think we all have a better appreciation after this morning's conversations about, the threat and the rise of a resurgent China. We understand that Russia and what they pretend to espouse to in the future. So when I talk about the criticality of the land-based leg of the Triad, okay, a Sentinel program is critical to that. All of it underpins, again, our national security. And here's where I get to talk a little bit about politics, even though for military members, we're mostly apolitical. But if you go back and look at the policies of the past 8 consecutive administrations, they differ on a lot of things. They don't differ on the requirement for a nuclear triad. Let that sink in for a second. For the last 60 years and counting, our nuclear deterrent has underpinned our national security. And we don't look to see it changing anytime soon. So bottom line, we need the Sentinel program. The Sentinel provides a strategy that meets the current need and prepares us for the future need. It meets warfighter requirements, and warfighter being U.S. STRATCOM. It meets their warfighter requirements. It also replaces an aging Minuteman system that's still performing well, still effective, still credible, but that's the 1950s Corvette. It can only give you so much over time, and people are building faster, taller, quicker, all the time. Before I get into the specifics of the program, I do want to highlight who I currently work for at Global Strike headquarters. obviously I work for General Boucher. He's the ultimate commander for command. But within the directorates at Global Strike, Brigadier General Colin Connor, a former wing commander here for the 91st Mission Wing. I think some of you know him personally, and he's been here several times to talk about Sentinel. But based on, some language in the National Defense Authorization Act back in FY23, Global Strike stood up a new directorate called ATN. General Connor leads that directorate, and he's responsible for that transition between the current ICBM system, the Minuteman III, transition to Sentinel. So that is his by law mandate. General Boucher jokes that he's the only one that has a position by law in the command, and he's out doing great work. In fact, today he's at the Pentagon meeting with some staffers. We're located, the directorate itself is located within Air Force Global Strike headquarters, and we have personnel at Hill Air Force Base who works hand in hand with the system program officer out there. We have a program integration officer and a small staff at F.E. Warren. Since they are the first missile wing that's scheduled to get Sentinel, we have a small contingent at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana as well. They have a program integration officer. And obviously, as we get closer to construction and fielding the system here at Minot, General Connor intends to provide the same level of support here locally for the men and women here and for the community here at Minot. And we have a team out at Vandenberg who supports the testing and preparing for Sentinel testing out at Vandenberg. Okay, I told you that I would tell you what it is and what it isn't. So here's some photos going back to the late 50s, early 60s that kind of show the fielding and the construction related to Minuteman coming online. Okay, Sentinel will not do that. Maybe. Okay, the current program of record, the current strategy for Sentinel says that we will reuse as much of Minuteman III facility-wise as we can. Even though it's a new system, we want to take advantage of the lease agreements, the property, etc., as much as we can, which makes, hopefully makes it more cost effective. However, we're also extending utility corridors within the state of North Dakota, in Montana, and across Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska as well. So it'll be a mixed bag. You get a little bit of both. You might not see some construction like this, and you might. So what it is and what it isn't. So I think the wrong way. Okay, this is a busy slide, but this is a money slide because it captures a lot of questions that I've been getting since I got here yesterday. A lot of questions about, hey, what is Sentinel? What are the impacts? And I'll go macro. This is a macro slide, so you get to see the entirety of the program. Okay, we're talking about 33,000 square miles, about the size of the state of Maine. Okay, huge. Okay, public works project. Okay, spread across 5 states. You see Minot pictured up there. So I'm going to start in that left corner that says SATAP. That's the Site Activation Task Force, SATAP. Every missile wing is intended to get an organization called SATAP. That is the plan. That organization, we anticipate, will have several hundred people on base. And we're working with the leadership at F1 right now as we get closer to that, at that base. Directly underneath that, again, implications to Minot. We anticipate a contractor workforce hub that could potentially be anywhere between 2,500 to about 3,000 people. So when you think about, I'm going to get ahead of myself. So, because I do want to give you a chance to ask me about, hey, what are the environmental studies indicated as the economic impacts to the local area, and I'll talk about that as well. 31 traditional Milcom projects, nationwide industry footprint, and someone that's been looked at as part of the non-McCurdy. In terms of the actual parts and pieces, looking at the map, if you start on the right side, it says AVE, that's an aerospace vehicle, so that's the weapon system itself. Sentinel is about the same height as Minuteman III. The diameter is slightly bigger than Minuteman III. If you go clockwise, you look at the LF. Some of you got a chance to go out to a missile alert facility yesterday and also a launch facility. So we intend, based on the current program, to reuse, refurbish the current Minuteman III LFs as much as possible. So for the state of Minot, North Dakota, 150 sites. So whatever the cost of one multiplies times 150. Okay, the number, that tells you what the number is. Continuing clockwise, we're going to see what we call an LCA and an LCB. That's Launch Center. So think of this as your missile alert facility for those of you that went to the math yesterday. Okay, we're going to build new maps. We're going to tear down the old ones and build new ones. We only intend to build 8 per wing. So those additional sites that we don't use, we're looking at what we can repurpose it for that supports the mission. If you continue to go clockwise, you see something that says the ICC. That's the Integrated Command Center. That is a facility that is baked into our command and control network with Sentinel. And that's a new facility, a new capability that Sentinel has that the current Minuteman III weapon system does not. That facility would be on base, so the airmen on base would be able to interact with the weapon system across the entire complex. And the airplane is our secondary launch platform, called A. It's intended to be a backup launch capability for Sentinel. So if you look at the account takeaway statement that I have at the bottom, very large, very complex. I read in one article that we're going to talk about later on today, someone equates Sentinel to about 5 major defense acquisition programs wrapped into one. That's the span, scope, scale when you talk about something that's about the size of the state of man. I've said most of it, but just to make sure that you understand that the deployed location will be at the traditional missile wings, F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Malmstrom Air Force Base, and obviously here at Minot. And we have facilities and infrastructure that we're building also at our support locations out at Kiel, out at Camp Guernsey, and also at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Okay, macro level, you get to see all the different projects that are planned for the entirety of the program. So for Minot Air Force Base, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of planned construction. And I'll talk more about that. In total, by the time we reach full operational capability for the Sentinel weapon system, I think we have did the math. It equates to 573 projects. So massive. Okay, let's start with on base Minot proper. Okay, so between Bomber Boulevard and Missile Avenue, you kind of get your bearing. Okay, between those two, major kind of arteries on the base, look at all the highlighted yellow. Those are all major construction areas. You can't see what those little white boxes say, the names of the facilities. There's about 15 of them. When it's all said and done, it's estimated we're going to invest about $850 million into the base of Minot. Going the wrong way again. Okay, off base. I'll talk a little bit about the missile alert facilities. We currently have 15 that supports the Minuteman III weapon system. Sentinel right now is on the plan to utilize 8. Again, remember that LCA, LCB. Launch Center A is topside. Launch Center B is the downstairs launch control center that some of you got a chance to visit yesterday. So we plan to have 8 of those, and we'll repurpose the rest of them. All 150 LFs will be converted. We'll construct 13 new communication towers. And in addition to the 1,500 miles of existing utility corridors right now that supports Minuteman III across North Dakota, we're going to need another 938 miles. So if you look at the map, so Minot, Air Force Base being the center, so that sits in Ward County. So then you look at, I think is that Burke? Like just south of Ward. You just kind of do like a half circle. All the surrounding counties are being impacted by Sentinel. Estimated investment off base to support Sentinel, over $4 billion. Okay. Before I start talking non-McCurdy, anyone wants to raise a question and have a question about what I've shown so far? Okay, non-McCurdy. In January of this year, the Air Force sent over notifications to Congress saying that we're experiencing or seeing cost overruns with the current Sentinel program. And here are some of the articles that have come out that speaks to what's in the open press. I should be here. Someone else should be here. All right, so Sentinel non-McCurdy. There was a law that passed in either 82 or 83. I think it actually passed in 83. And it requires that the Department of Defense report to Congress whenever a major defense acquisition program experiences cost overrun. So we have a couple of breaches. We have a significant breach and a critical breach. Okay, significant breach means that you're at least 15% above the baseline cost, and then you reach critical when you get to 25%. So open source reporting is that Sentinel right now shows at least 37% overrun in its cost right now. And that triggers a critical breach, according to the non-McCurdy law. Additionally, as part of the declaring a non-McCurdy breach, the Secretary of Defense, the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Dr. LaPlante, has to review the entire program. When I say review the entire program, you look at, whether the program is essential to national security. You look at if there are alternatives to the program or modifications to the program. You look at the cost, okay, ways to have to assess the cost. You look at the funding priority, and then you look at the program management. How is the program being managed? And you also running in the background, you have to determine the root causes of what triggered a non-occurrence. So all of that is running concurrently as we speak. And I didn't talk timelines. I didn't tell you when to expect construction to begin on the base. I didn't tell you when to expect the LF conversions to happen in the field. There is a schedule that has been published by the prime contractor, which is Northrop Grumman. I think some of you have met the leadership out there at Hill Air Force Base. Because right now everything's being looked at, and I don't want to presuppose what's gonna ultimately come out of the non-occurring process. What I can say is that we're not stopping anything. The program is, it's still being executed today. Things are still happening. Lieutenant General Ludden mentioned the groundbreaking events that we're seeing at F.E. Warren and some other places. We have activities that are ongoing, across this nation in support of Sentinel because we haven't halted anything. Okay. Here's what we talked about. Here's what I said, and here's what it is. Here's what it is. Did I meet my intent? I'll find out. Any questions? Sir. Someone said repeat the question. So I can tell you before the non-occurring, before the first of the year, before the non-occurring breach, for Minot, basic construction was scheduled to begin in FY27. And that was intended to go until FY34. And your LF conversions would have started in FY32 out to 36. Any other questions? Okay. Either I completely blew you away or I confused you even more, which I apologize for. But no, I think it's important that for this community to understand where we are with the program. As I said, F.E. Warren is the first missile wing that's intended to see Sentinel go through that transition. And General Connor is very engaged with the transition based on what you saw in the law. He's visited Maelstrom several times, and I think he's visiting Minot a couple times on his calendar. As we get closer, we are definitely planning to host town halls to answer questions from the community, to make sure that you are informed of what's coming, the status of the program, and hopefully, as a team, like we've always done it here in this city, in this state, okay, we're gonna get through this together. I'm very optimistic that Sentinel, will be fielded. However, I don't want to presuppose what's going to happen going through the non-occurring process. Okay. Thank you.